Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxer. He wasn't just a world champion, a poet, or a revolutionary. He was a man who unlocked a secret that most men never discover in their lifetime. A truth so primal and powerful, it has been whispered by warriors and monks for centuries. Lust is energy. It is the raw, untamed fire of creation itself. And if you learn to master it instead of being mastered by it, you become something more than a man. You become a force of nature. You become unstoppable. At the height of his career, when cameras flashed like lightning and the world chanted his name in a deafening chorus, Ali was living by a code of conduct most men today can't even begin to fathom. He wasn't squandering his vitality in the dimly lit corners of nightclubs, chasing the fleeting validation of women, or drowning his potential in the shallow pools of indulgence. He was conserving it. He was guarding it like a sacred flame, redirecting its heat, and channeling its immense power to fuel the legendary battles that would etch his name into eternity. Ali's epic journey began not on a throne, but on the gritty streets of Louisville, Kentucky. As a boy named Cassius Clay, he wasn't born into privilege or handed a roadmap to greatness. He stumbled upon his destiny out of indignation. His bicycle was stolen, and a surge of youthful rage sent him walking into a boxing gym, seeking the tools to defend himself. But what transformed that determined young boy into the greatest wasn't merely his supernatural speed or innate talent. It was a discipline so profound, it bordered on the spiritual. From the very beginning, Ali separated himself from the pack, not just by the ferocity of his training, but by the asceticism of his life. Even as a teenager, long before the world knew his name, he spoke of women as beautiful distractions, of lust as a siren's call that could wreck a man's focus to the shores of mediocrity. He understood, with an intuition that defied his years, that every single ounce of a man's energy mattered. When he embraced the Nation of Islam and later mainstream Islam, this nascent understanding of lust, discipline, and manhood crystallized into an unbreakable philosophy. His faith provided the architecture for his intuition. It taught him that the nafs, the ego, the lower self, the seat of carnal desires, is a wild horse. Uncontrolled, it tramples a man, dragging him through the mud of his own base impulses. But if a man can break this horse, if he can control it and direct its power, it becomes a magnificent steed that can carry him to victory. For Ali, this was not abstract theory. It was a daily, lived practice. In the crucial weeks leading up to his biggest fights, he practiced total abstinence. He wouldn't touch a woman. He held an unshakable belief that sexual release drained him of his physical power, weakened his legs, and dulled the razor-sharp edge of his hunger. When a man abstains from sex, his body is stronger and his mind is clearer. Ali once stated, "You cannot chase women and expect to stay at your best. That's a game for another time. When you have a mission, you have to be in control." Pause and truly absorb the weight of that statement from a man like Ali. We live in a world where the average man is glued to a screen, his mind and spirit perpetually hijacked by a relentless stream of images, engineered to exploit his most primal urges. Ali was decades, perhaps centuries, ahead of his time. He saw with perfect clarity what so many are blind to. Lust is the most potent, primordial force a man possesses. It is the engine of life, and yet most men waste it with reckless abandon. They hemorrhage this precious fuel, handing it over to digital distractions, to fleeting moments of hollow pleasure, never once realizing they are giving away the very power that could build their empires. Take a hard look at the modern man. He is, by many metrics, weaker than his grandfather. His testosterone levels are in a state of free fall. His drive is diminished, his focus is shattered, and his soul is plagued by a chronic state of distraction. This is not an accident, it's by design. The world profits from keeping him soft, addicted, and passive. Every app on your phone is a masterfully engineered slot machine for your attention. Every advertisement sells you the poison of comfort over the antidote of growth. Every pixel of hypersexualized content is a microdose of a weakness, chipping away at the bedrock of your discipline. The system doesn't want warriors, it wants consumers. It wants you weak, where you become a mere slave to your impulses. But the men who rise above this wreck, the fighters, the founders, the visionaries who shape the world, they operate from a different playbook. They flip the script. They do not let lust control them, they control it. They see it not as a master to be served, but as a resource to be managed. They don't extinguish the fire. They build a furnace around it and use it to forge their destiny. They choose the path of the saint, the master of the self, over the path of the slave. This is the chasm that separates the great from the forgotten. It's a conscious choice to reject the easy path of indulgence for the difficult, but infinitely more rewarding path of discipline. Modern science is beginning to catch up to this ancient wisdom. Studies on semen retention have indicated potential links to increased testosterone, elevated mood, sharper focus, and greater emotional resilience. Top-tier athletes and high-performing entrepreneurs who practice this form of self-discipline often report a significant competitive edge. It's not magic, it's biology. Your body and mind are designed to reward discipline with strength, but it is crucial to understand this critical distinction. This is not about repression, it is about redirection. Repressing an energy as powerful as lust is like trying to plug a volcano. The pressure will build and eventually erupt in destructive ways. The master doesn't kill his desires, he tames them and puts them to work. Ali was the perfect living embodiment of this principle. Consider the rumble in the jungle, a fight that was more myth than sporting event. He was facing George Foreman, a man who wasn't just a champion but a force of destruction, a human wrecking ball who was knocking out elite fighters with terrifying ease. The world, the experts, the odds makers, they all thought Ali was walking to his own execution. But Ali arrived in Zaire with a supernatural calm, a chilling sharpness in his eyes, a patience that unnerved everyone. He had meticulously trained his body, sharpened his mind to a razor's edge, and, most crucially, he had conserved every atom of his primal energy for that singular night. For 7 rounds, he absorbed the monstrous storm of Foreman's punches, a human shock absorber executing the now legendary rope-a-dope. And then, in the 8th round, when the beast was exhausted, Ali unleashed the torrent he had been saving. The lightning-fast combination that sent Foreman crashing to the canvas wasn't just a display of boxing strategy. It was a manifestation of total self-mastery. It was the final explosive act of a man who refused to waste his power on anything that did not serve his ultimate mission. This ancient wisdom was not his alone. Mike Tyson, another fearsome heavyweight, spoke of how abstaining from sex before fights transformed him into an absolute monster in the ring. Angrier, hungrier, more explosive, more terrifying. His legendary trainer Customato, a philosopher of the warrior spirit, hammered into him a simple truth: discipline is everything. Tyson himself admitted that when he lost that discipline later in his life, he succumbed to the temptations of fame and indulgence, losing his invincible edge. Floyd Mayweather, perhaps the most strategically disciplined boxer in history, was also a devout practitioner of abstinence before his bouts. This principle extends far beyond the blood and canvas of the boxing ring. The greatest minds in history understood the same fundamental law of energy transmutation. Nikola Tesla, the wizard of electricity whose mind birthed the modern world, refused marriage and lived a life of celibacy, firmly believing that his creative genius was directly fueled by the conservation of his sexual energy. Leonardo da Vinci, the quintessential Renaissance man, practiced an extreme form of discipline, rejecting all forms of indulgence to focus his life force into his transcendent art and science. But Ali's life provides the ultimate proof. When he was unjustly banned from boxing for 3.5 years at the peak of his powers for refusing to fight in Vietnam, he lost everything. His title, his income, his prime fighting years. A lesser man would have collapsed. He would have wasted away in bitterness, drowned himself in indulgence, and faded into obscurity. But Ali didn't. He trained. He spoke at colleges. He sharpened his mind and fortified his spirit. He used that same core principle of energy conservation, not just for a 15-round fight, but for a 3-year war of attrition against the US government and public opinion. And when he returned, he was not a broken man. He was a legend reborn, ready to reclaim his throne. That is the warrior's proof. This history lesson is a direct and urgent message for you. This is not about idolizing a man from the past. This is a call to action for the man you are today. You're living in a world more saturated with temptation, more engineered for addiction, and more driven by lust than any other time in human history. Most men are drowning in this digital ocean, pulled under by the currents of manufactured desire, but you do not have to be one of them. You can do what Ali did. You could take that raw, primal energy that surges within you and perform an act of personal alchemy. You can redirect it into your work, into your training, into your mission. Imagine for a moment applying this level of discipline in your own life. Picture the goals you have written down, the ambitions that are burned within you, the business you want to build, the physique you want to carve from stone, the financial freedom you crave. Now ask yourself with brutal honesty, how much stronger would you be if you stopped wasting your most potent energy? How much faster could you achieve those goals if you redirected every ounce of that primal drive into focused, relentless action? Lust is not your enemy. It is your weapon. But it's a weapon that is useless and even dangerous unless you are its master. Ali didn't hate women. He was one of the most charismatic and adored men on the planet. The key was that he knew when to say no. He possessed the wisdom to know when his mission demanded his full, undivided energy. Here's how you begin to apply it. The next time you feel the powerful pull of lust, don't react. Stop. Take a breath. Observe the energy. Do not act on the impulse. Instead, close your eyes and visualize that raw, electric feeling being channeled upwards, away from your loins and into your chest, your mind, your hands. Imagine it flowing like liquid fire into your workout, your business plan, your creative project. Use it as fuel. Each time you successfully do this, you are building a muscle of the mind. You're training your will to be stronger than your instincts. Over time, that strength compounds. You become sharper, hungrier, more present, and more relentless. Ali understood this internal alchemy. It was why, even when surrounded by every temptation imaginable, his eyes remained fixed on the prize. He wasn't just fighting opponents in the ring, he was in a constant battle with himself. And by mastering himself, he became the master of his world. And you can too, because the truth is, every man is presented with this fundamental choice. You can live like the average man, a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the waves of lust, drained by distraction, forever chasing a pleasure that ultimately leaves you empty and weak. Or you can choose to live like Ali. You can seize control of that elemental energy, that alchemical fire within you, and redirect it into your grandest mission. You can use it to fuel your ambition, to build your empire, to become unstoppable. When you master lust, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, you master the world around you. That is what Muhammad Ali did. That is why his name still resonates with a power that transcends sport. He showed the world that true greatness is not born from talent alone. It is forged in the crucible of a self-mastery. The final bell is ringing. Now the question is simple, and it is for you alone to answer. What will you do with your energy? Will you squander it, or will you harness it to become the greatest version of yourself? The choice is yours. If you choose to put your life on track, watch this.